If you're a woman who eats clean, gets in her protein, and works out consistently, but you still look like this instead of like this, I can guarantee it is because you are making this very common, massive mistake I see so many women making. In fact, this is what I believe to be the #1 biggest pitfall holding back so many women from having the sexy, toned, tight, defined hourglass body of their dreams. It sucks to feel like you're putting in so much effort, eating so clean, working out so much, but still feeling kind of flabby, soft, and jiggly. So in today's video, I'm going to break down exactly what this mistake is, why it is preventing you from achieving the sexy toned body of your dreams, and exactly how to fix it for good so you can finally have the body you always wanted. This is exactly what I had to learn myself in my fitness journey because I spent years working out 6 days a week, eating what I thought was a perfect diet, and for all that effort, even though I had some results, I really didn't think I looked that impressive for the amount of work I was putting in. And what I had to do instead was actually learn how to eat way more food, work out less, but learn how to do better quality workouts. And that is when I finally got the tight, defined, feminine hourglass body of my dreams. And this is also what I have done with over 500 women of all different ages all over the world to take them from a more flabby, skinny, fat body to finally getting the tight, toned, defined body of their dreams. So listen up, let's break down what this deadly mistake is. Okay, ladies, the #1 deadliest mistake that is keeping you stuck from getting the sexy, tight, toned body you really want to have is thinking that that result is going to happen just by losing body fat. The reality is that look happens when you also focus on muscle gain instead of only thinking about fat loss. And a lot of women think they are focusing on muscle gain in addition to fat loss because they're like, well, what do you mean? I'm lifting weights, I'm getting in protein, of course I'm also prioritizing muscle gain, but then they don't actually look like somebody who has any muscle because if they did, they would look toned, tight, and defined instead of flabby and jiggly. And again, I have been there, I know exactly what this is like, and this is also the main starting point of the vast majority of the women I work with. So I know all the little details of where you're going wrong, and I'm gonna save you from making this mistake in this video. So here's the thing, when you fall into this trap of thinking that your dream body is going to happen if you just take more fat off your body, this drives you to do 3 things that actually completely backfire from you getting the tone look you want. The first deadly mistake is that you think you need to eat as little food as possible, and you fall into eating very low calories for months and even years on end. Usually I see most women in this kind of 1,200 to 1,600 calories a day range, and there might be a time and a place where you have to eat that much for a small period of time, but instead what these women do is they're eating that much for literally ages, and they're never changing the amount of food that they eat, which means that they're stuck eating a really not fun, miserable amount of food where they feel really restricted, and they literally just don't see any way out. They're stuck eating that little, and worst of all, they're not even seeing the results that they want. The second deadly mistake is going low carb, because again, you think, okay, I just need to lose weight, I just need to lose body fat at all costs, so I should eat fewer carbs because carbs make you fat, or whatever the justification is. So on top of eating low calorie, you're now also eating low carb, and although this might help you lose some weight and lose some body fat in the very beginning, you're absolutely going to plateau that, and you're going to be stuck feeling kind of flabby instead of toned and tight, because carbs are so important for muscle gain, which we're going to get into in a little bit. And then the third deadly mistake that's keeping you stuck skinny fat instead of toned is thinking that you just need to exercise as much as you possibly can, and that the more you exercise, the harder you exercise, the more you sweat, the better your results are going to be, because you kind of think, okay, lose fat equals eat less, move more, so I should just be exercising like every single day, getting my heart rate up like crazy. Now again, this is how women really shoot themselves in the foot, because probably when you first started doing any of these 3 things, you might have seen a little bit of results at first that you got really excited about. You might have seen the scale going down a bit, you might have seen that you're getting a little bit smaller, so it made you think, okay, this is what I need to do, this is what works. But you also noticed that even though you might have got a little bit smaller, and even though the scale might have gone down a little bit, you actually didn't look tight, toned, and defined with a sexy feminine hourglass shape. So now once you get to this point, one of two things is going to happen. You're either A, going to just kind of stay at this low calorie intake, low carb, lots of exercise because you're too afraid to change anything. You're so terrified that if you stop eating this little food that you're just gonna gain a ton of weight. So you literally imprison yourself in this low calorie trap and you stay there for months and years and your body literally is not changing at all. You're super restricted, but you're too terrified to do anything differently. The second option is that you get tired of it and you're like, okay, I am gonna start eating more food. I am going to increase my calories, but you don't know how to do this in a smart, sophisticated way. And then unfortunately, you do actually just end up gaining back the weight that you lost initially, and you might even gain back more than you initially had and find that the next time you wanna go lose some weight, you'll have a harder time doing that. Okay, so then the question to ask is, why does this happen in the first place? Well, here's the thing. Your body is super smart. It wants to keep you alive. So what it's going to do is it's going to adapt to the intake that you're giving it. So if you cut your calories, you cut your carbs, and you start eating that way for a really long period of time, your body is going to adapt. It's going to realize, okay, there's not enough food coming in, so we need to slow down how many calories we burn. We need to slow down bodily functions like digestion, which is also why, by the way, a lot of the time you end up feeling really bloated when you're eating really low calorie and looking really puffy in your midsection. And on top of that, because you may be losing some weight on the scale, yes, some of that might have been body fat, but it could be up to as much as 50% of the weight you lost was actually muscle mass that you already had. So all of this is just creating a perfect storm where you've slowed down your metabolism to a crawl. You've also created some damage to your internal system. Your hormones are not working as well. Your thyroid is underactive. Your digestion is not as good. And this is why you end up just completely plateauing and not making any more progress. And it's also why if you just introduce a whole bunch of food back in all of a sudden, you're going to gain a bunch of weight and have an even harder time losing it, because now with the muscle loss, with the slowed down metabolism, and with the kind of imbalanced hormones, your body is just not in a good spot. Now, I know that sounds really negative, but the good news is you can change it. You can improve all of this and you can turn it around for good. Okay, so how can we turn all of this around? Well, you need to realize that the body you want, sexy, toned, hourglass, feminine shape, is a body that also has a lot of muscle on it, as well as keeping your body fat levels relatively low. So you need to get out of the trap of thinking it's just about fat loss, it's just about weight loss, and realize that you actually really need to prioritize muscle gain to look the way that you want to look aesthetically, and also, by the way, to get a fast metabolism, because the more muscle you have, the faster your metabolism will be, the better your inner system is going to work, your better digestion, better hormones. So this is what's going to allow you to get that sexy toned body and actually maintain it really easily while eating plenty of food, getting to go out to eat, have wine, have drinks with your friend, eat pizza, go on vacation, and still have the sexy toned body you want. So this is where women go wrong. They think that so long as they take this fat off of their body, they're gonna have all this crazy definition to show underneath. But the thing is, if you haven't actually given your body the right food, and if you haven't done the right type of working out, you didn't actually build very much muscle, if any at all, underneath the fat to show, right? So this is why it's a combination of, yes, we do need to take some fat off your body, but if you don't have anything underneath to show, if you haven't built any muscle underneath, you're still going to look soft, flabby, and jiggly instead of toned, tight, and defined. That is going to come from you putting a huge emphasis on muscle gain. So I'm going to illustrate this with an example of my client, Casey, who is literally like the prime example of what I'm talking about here. When she first came to me, she was gaining weight faster than she ever had in her life, even though she was constantly dieting, constantly doing low calorie, super restrictive, and she was exercising every single day, going for crazy long runs every single day, and she was literally bigger than she'd ever been in her life. She came to me completely at her wits' ends, and that's when I educated her about all this and said, you need to focus on muscle gain and strength gain, and in order to do that, we need to eat more food. You need to learn how to have the right ratios, the right amounts of the different macros, protein, fats, carbs, and also fiber, and you need to focus on strength training, lifting weights to build muscle, not just running only. And boom, we ended up taking 20 pounds off her body, but of course she didn't only lose 20 pounds because you can see how toned, how strong, tight and defined she became. She never would have looked like this if we hadn't really focused on building muscle in addition to the weight loss she achieved. If she just lost 20 pounds without a focus on muscle gain, number one, it would have been way harder, way more miserable and difficult to achieve, and she probably would have had a really difficult time maintaining it. But number two, she wouldn't look so toned, strong and defined underneath. That comes from the muscle. And now she maintains this body with ease. She eats anywhere from 2,000 to 2,400 calories a day to maintain these results and only has to work out 4 times a week, not every day anymore. Okay, so at the beginning of the video, I talked about how these 3 big mistakes that women fall into when they think the only way to get their dream body is just losing fat. These 3 mistakes are actually the opposite of what you need to be doing. So I'm gonna be telling you what you should be doing instead of those 3 things. Okay, so the first one that we need to look at is this belief that you need to always be eating low calorie. Hopefully by now you understand why that doesn't work. If you want to be toned, defined, and sexy looking, that means we need to put muscle on your body. And you cannot gain muscle if you are barely eating. Period. You cannot create a tissue on your body, which is the lean muscle tissue, if you are not giving your body resources to create muscle with. It's literally like trying to build a house and then not having any bricks to build with and wondering why the house is not getting built. So in order to create tissue on your body that is not there right now, which is that sexy muscle mass, you need to give your body the resources to create it with, and that means you need to not be eating super little. In particular, you need to have enough protein and you really need to have enough carbs, which I'm going to get into in the next point. Those are the 2 main building blocks of muscle. So it's also important to understand that since we want to gain muscle and take body fat off, there are different phases to physique building. This is also a huge trap that I could make an entire video on its own about, is that most women think there's just like this one set of a magic protein target and magic calories that if they eat this one way for like a year or 2, that's going to be exactly what they need to transform their body. When in reality, you need to consistently keep changing the amount of food you eat to get an insane transformation. For example, any of these client transformations I show here usually took up to about 1 year for us to achieve, and in that 1 year period, they had anywhere from 15 to 30 macro changes, meaning the amounts of protein, carbs, and fats that they were eating had to consistently keep changing, because what you need to do is you need to meet your body where it's at right now, and then there's times where you need to be working up your food using something called a reverse diet. This is going to be the very first phase that you do. This is where you gradually eat more and more food, and the emphasis of this phase is adding on muscle gain as well as speeding up metabolism. So no matter who you are, no matter where you're at right now, it is a really good idea to make sure that you spend some time doing this process of reverse dieting. Now, I know it sounds crazy to be like, well, what do you mean? I have weight that I want to lose, I have fat that I want to lose. Shouldn't I just rush into a calorie deficit first? The answer is no, because if you start eating the right amount of food with the right ratios of nutrients, aka the right macros, and you also start doing the right training, the right strength training, start lifting weights the right way, really pushing yourself using challenging weights, this combination alone is already going to start to change your body. You're already going to see that fat is coming off while muscle shape and definition is coming on as you bring food up. So you don't need to rush into a calorie deficit right away. Why wouldn't you want to take fat off and put muscle on first, eating more food rather than eating less? So again, I'm going to illustrate this with a client example. This is my client Kiana, who again was the perfect candidate of exactly what I'm talking about here. When she first came to me, she was so used to doing the crazy restrictive crash diets and doing tons of cardio every single day. And obviously she was stuck feeling really skinny fat and she didn't know why she could not get a toned body. And I told her that we were going to actually increase her food. We were going to decrease the amount she worked out, and we we're going to actually focus instead on strength training, on building muscle. And she was like so afraid. She didn't believe me. She was like, no, 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 this is going to make me bulky. I don't want to be bulky. I want to be lean and toned. I was like, girl, trust me. I'm gonna get you lean and toned. So she did decide to trust me, and literally just within 2 months of us working together, this is how she ended up looking. And this was going all the way up to 2,100 calories a day, and she is only 5 feet tall. In her after photo, she had actually gained 4 pounds. So she weighs a little bit more than when she started with me, but obviously her body totally transformed. She's lean, she's toned, even though she weighs a bit more, and that's because it's not just weight, it's the source of the weight, it's body composition. How much is muscle and how much is body fat? Okay, so that's the first thing to understand, is that there's times where you need to bring your food up, and then there's times where you're going to cut from that higher amount of food. So that's really what a reverse diet is doing for you. It's allowing you to speed up your metabolism to get some initial body recomposition going on, and then it's prepping you for when it is going to make sense to do a fat loss phase, to really focus on kind of maximizing your fat loss potential. Now that your body is in a good position, you've already built some muscle and you've already sped up your metabolism, so now your fat loss phase is going to be easier, and also so that when you take off the fat, you have something to show underneath. An example of this is like with my client Karen, who's 45 years old and had an insane transformation. As you can see, she came to me with quite a bit of body fat, and once we went through this process of an initial reverse diet, then doing a cut, and now reverse dieting out of her cut once again, so that she can maintain her results at a higher calorie intake. So this is the secret to how you get to keep the results for good without having to continue to diet. She looks totally different. You can see she got like absolutely shredded, crazy muscle definition, crazy abs, and this was all made possible by the fact that we did this correctly. We didn't just immediately rush into eating super low calorie. We always tried to keep the food as high as possible while still achieving the results of her dreams, and now being able to maintain it with ease. So if you don't want to have to figure this all out on your own, if you want to be told exactly what to do, having a fully customized strategy of exactly what to be doing with your workouts, with your food, and being held highly accountable, being guided, supported, reassured, with lots of custom feedback throughout the process, that's exactly what we do inside of our one-to-one coaching program. Now, this isn't just some cookie cutter, cheap, basic program where you're not really given any real advice. This is a super premium, hands-on, one-to-one quality coaching program where you're gonna not have to guess anything. Everything is done for you. And so long as you're ready to show up, ask questions, and follow the steps that we lay out, you're gonna be absolutely astounded by the insane results that you get. So if you're ready to finally get your dream body once and for all without having to guess and wonder if you're doing things right, then click on the link in the description, fill out an application. We'd love to chat with you and see if you'd be a good fit for one-to-one coaching. Okay, going on to reason number 2, why you should not eat low carb, is because carbs is actually one of the primary building blocks for you to gain muscle. Yes, I know it sounds crazy, but it's how it actually works. So here's the thing, for you to gain the muscle that you want to have, to look toned, to look defined, you need to do challenging workouts where you need to pick up challenging weights. And if you are barely eating, you are not going to be able to push yourself that hard in your workouts. And if you're not pushing yourself that hard in your workouts, you're not really challenging your muscles, then they don't have a reason to grow. And guess what? They don't end up growing and you don't end up looking toned. Now, carbs is your body's #1 primary source of quick access fuel. So this is why all these super fit girls you see on Instagram are certainly not starving themselves, not under eating on their carbs. It's probably their primary source of fuel. Like myself, I am pretty much always eating, at least 250 grams of carbs a day. Really rarely that I eat any less than that. The only time is when I'm really kind of in the low end of a cutting phase. And even then, that is temporary because there's no way I would have the shape, the definition, the kind of hourglass figure that I have been able to achieve if I was not eating as many carbs as I am. It is going to power you through the workouts that you need to do to push yourself in the first place to build the muscle. And it's also just giving you the resources to build muscle with. Because yes, protein is also needed to build muscle, but once you kind of hit the max of your protein, there's no need to eat anymore. But since you need to keep increasing your calories to help speed up metabolism, to help give your body more resources to create more muscle with, it's going to be the carbs that is the one that increases. So again, this is something you do in a calculated, controlled way. You're not just like randomly stuffing your face with whatever croissants or anything you see in sight. You're doing this based on actual data, checking your scale trend, looking at your photos, looking at the biofeedback of your body every single week, hunger, energy, sleep, stress. And again, this is exactly what we do inside of coaching. It's very data driven. We're not guessing. We are making decisions based on what your body is actually showing us we need, and that is the right way to do it. Okay, and then the last point, which is thinking that if you just exercise all the time and you exercise as hard as possible every single day, that's gonna make you look really good, when in fact, it just makes you skinny fat. Why is that happening? Because Exercise does not mean that you are doing anything to build muscle. Exercise literally just means you're getting your heart rate up, and although that's a good thing, that's not the same thing as you looking toned and defined and shapely. If you want that result, you need to actually work out in a way that is designed to create that muscle growth. And what that is strength training. You need to actually lift challenging weights. You need to have access to good quality equipment. You need to go to either an actual gym, or if you're working out from home, you need to have weights that are more than just 5, 10, or 20 pounds. You should have dumbbells that go up to at least 50 pounds per dumbbell. And if you are at home somewhere, I recommend getting those adjustable dumbbells that go anywhere from 5 to 50 pounds, so you're gonna be able to do this. And honestly, even that is just the very beginning. It's better if you can even get yourself like a bar, if you can get some cables. You wanna have access to equipment that is going to allow you to really push your muscles, really stimulate them, so they have a reason to grow. And then those two things are gonna go hand in hand. You're gonna do good quality training sessions where you're really giving your muscles a reason to grow, and you're eating enough, especially getting those carbs in, so you have the fuel to do that training. And then you're also eating enough to create the muscle on your body that is not there right now. And then as you create that muscle, the fat is coming off, the muscle definition is coming on, you're speeding up metabolism, you're improving the way that your inner body works, and it's just making this beautiful final product where you have the sexy toned body you always wanted, and you're able to maintain it with ease. All right, fam, so that is how you do it. You need to avoid this trap of thinking that it is just fat loss, it is just weight loss that is going to get you your dream body. If you take that fat off and you have nothing to show underneath, you're still gonna be so disappointed with the way you look, and it's gonna be way more difficult to achieve in the first place. It is so much more fun, so much more enjoyable and sustainable to focus also on muscle gain, because you get to eat way more food and actually leverage that food to look better, to get the tone, get the definition you want, and to be able to maintain it for good with ease. So again, if those are the results you want, you're tired of struggling, trying to figure this all out on your own, then click on the link in the description, fill out an application for coaching. I'd love to chat with you and see if you'd be a good fit to work with us one-to-one to finally get the toned body of your dreams. All right, fam, thank you so much for checking out this video. Now next, I want you to go watch this one here, where I'm gonna go into more detail about what it looks like to go through this reverse diet and cut in detail, you know, when and how to change how much you're eating, how to know when the right time is, so you can start to finally see that progress you've been dying to have. So I'll see you in that video.